I'm entirely convinced that the Nintendo Switch has been rushed to release, and I'd like to see if what convinced me convinces you too. Let's talk about it in the comments below, but first, my opinion. I'm Tarmack, and this is Feature Creep. So on January 12th, Nintendo did their press event to show off the Nintendo NX, or Switch as it has been called. Now, before I get into this, I want to say how amusing the lead up to the press event was. Nintendo chose not to reveal the console sooner because it said it was concerned that competitors would copy their ideas, even though Reggie outright said the whole point of the Switch was to, quote, create products and experiences that are unique and really can't be copied by our competition, end quote. And what a press event it was. But as new details emerge over the last few weeks, I started to wonder about what the Switch was supposed to be, because Nintendo didn't do a very good job of showing a consolidated view of their console. So let's run down my list of reasons why the Switch looks at best to have been pushed forward in the release schedule about 6 months. Stock numbers are an indicator here. Nintendo has said that they're providing 2 million units to cover the first month of release, that being March 2017. The PlayStation 4 sold through 1 million consoles in North America alone in the first 24 hours of the console being on the market, 250,000 in the UK in the first 2 days, 500,000 if you look at the first 5 weeks. And given that it launched in the middle of November to the end of November for North America and Europe, it had sold 4.2 million consoles by the end of 2013, without having even launched in Japan until February of the next year. The Xbox One had sold 2 million units in its first 18 days to provide a comparative point. Now, all of this in and of itself doesn't necessarily indicate a major flaw, but it is odd because both Sony and Microsoft shipped a lot more units to retail than they sold. So even if the Switch sells out entirely, it will have sold significantly fewer than the other two consoles on the market. And one of the biggest hallmarks of rushed hardware is being unable to satisfy demand because the manufacturer simply didn't have enough time to produce the hardware. The launch lineup is also an item of concern. The Switch is slated to have only one major title for its launch that isn't a port. Zelda Breath of the Wild is the only big new game that isn't either a port or a minor labeled title. 1-2 Switch doesn't count and you know it. Actually, let's give them two and say that Konami's Bomberman R is another new major title. The PS4 and Xbox One, meanwhile, had Assassin's Creed Black Flag, Battlefield 4, COD Ghosts, Need for Speed Rivals, Skylanders Swap Force, new Madden, NBA, and FIFA games. Yes, some of those games had old-gen console releases on launch or within a month or two, but they were all otherwise new titles. You have to consider that these large ship companies like EA, Activision, and Ubisoft need a lot of time to have a game ready. They need to know when the hardware is going to ship, so they can align their release dates to it. So where is that alignment for the Switch? Most of the games for the Nintendo Switch merely have a release date of sometime in 2017. There are a handful of titles that will be available on the March 3rd launch. A significant number of them, though, that are known or closer to being known are Quarter 3 and Quarter 4, that being the end of summer through fall and holiday 2017. Mario Odyssey and Project Sonic for Q4, Splatoon 2, Fire Emblem Warriors, and Skyrim in Q3. Most of the Quarter 2 releases are small games which are ports from existing systems. The release list looks like a bunch of titles planned around being ready to go for a Q4 holiday release, with a bunch of scrambling indies and devs handling ports trying to meet a new and not previously known release date. I mean, Bethesda can't get Skyrim ported to the Switch for launch? Well, they either didn't know when the launch was, or the original release date changed on them. What about online services? This is where the rush really comes home to roost for me. The online services, even now, 5 weeks from launch, doesn't have a defined feature set. We don't know what's included. We only know that it's free for a while because it's not worth charging for yet. And only available in North America, not Japan. That's odd, isn't it? They're going to be rolling out the online multiplayer portion, but whether the launch of the online services includes the free NES or SNES ROM, whether the phone chat app is ready to go, whether any of the other features they've talked about are ready, is anyone's guess. And it's free as a trial and won't officially launch until late 2017. How in the hell do you set up a brand new console in the current game market but not have your online services ready to go for launch? Well, if you pushed your console launch window ahead, that'd do it. I'd also like to talk about the lack of non-game apps. Now, I can see this one simply as Nintendo being Nintendo, but then they said it was being considered for a future update to include video streaming services. The idea that a tablet gaming device would not have Netflix, YouTube, and Twitch and others on launch it doesn't make any sense. Yeah, sure, they wanted to focus on it being a dedicated gaming machine, but then why does 1-2 Switch even exist? A series of minigames forcing you to look away from the screen that you can't hear anyways unless you're at home or have a nice portable sound system with you, and that you'll only play the game once. Sounds like a kind of a cop-out answer to me. Including a Netflix app is a no-brainer decision for a device of this type. You want parents to forget to bring the iPad on the family trip because little Johnny has his Nintendo and that's all he needs. Though to be fair, this is where the phone app thing throws me for a loop as well. But the fact that Nintendo said it's not there for launch but being considered for a future update simply says to me that it's not ready yet. Another item in the long list of things pointing to this console releasing 6 months before they initially intended to. In fact, the reports of how the demo of 1-2 Switch went indicate it's not even finished yet, requiring some kind of reboot of the Switch system or developer mode activation in order to swap between minigames. If that was an E3 presentation 6 months away from release, fine. But this was at an event a month and a half before the console is out. The game should be finished by now, enough to show off its UI and other things for swapping between minigames. Also notably absent was the Switch UI itself as well, with a screenshot posted by Binding of Isaac developer Nick Callis before being quickly taken down, showing a beyond banal looking user interface that frankly looks like a work in progress. Now, it's also possible that I'm wrong, but does that make the situation any better? If I'm wrong and this had been the intended launch window all along, that means that Nintendo didn't communicate it to developers so they could have their ports ready for launch. It means they didn't allocate enough resources to finish the online services for launch, that they chose to ship what is likely only half as many consoles to retailers as their competition did, that nobody thought maybe Netflix for launch was a good idea, and that they actually only intended to have one big game ready at launch themselves. Is that better? That this was all on purpose? I'd also like to address the inevitable criticism of this video. Nintendo has somewhere between $4 and $5 billion in cash, depending on who you ask and what day of the week it is. Yep, they do. They've also got shareholders to answer to, and most of the big shareholders are banks like JP Chase. The Nintendo founder Yamauchi family had about a combined 10% stake in Nintendo, unlike the commonly held belief that they held a majority stake. And they sold some of that 10% stock back to Nintendo in 2014 during the real onset of the Wii U crisis. So yes, Nintendo has a lot of money in the bank, but their console hardware division is hemorrhaging money right now, and even the 3DS business line is down. It's been declining for a long time, just like any King of the Castle hardware will do over a long period, in the area of an original expected 7.6 million units for 15-16 fiscal, down to around 5 million expected for 16-17. It's adorable when people make the argument that Nintendo could run at a loss for 30 to 40 years, because it betrays a lack of understanding of reality. Yes, they could, but the shareholders would never let them. So that's it. All of the indicators I've pointed to suggest an original target of holiday 2017, but with the Wii U business line having serious problems and the 3DS showing large reductions as well, Nintendo decided likely around the end of 2015, beginning of 2016, that they couldn't wait until holiday 2017. The Wii U was falling so rapidly with no future that the only option would have been to cut manufacturing with no new system to bring to customers. The concern that I've got is that a rushed console means rushed software. At the end of it all, I'm still very undecided about the Switch. I might pick one up around Christmas when it actually has a game library because I'm not a fan of buying a game system for 1 or 2 games. And it's going to take Nintendo until the holiday season to get the rest of their systems finished. I'm not saying that they made the wrong decision. Coming out for Christmas at the same time as the Scorpio launch would probably have ended up a much poorer decision to make. It just doesn't make sense that they intended to launch in March. Their financial situation, with continued downward adjustments of forecasted Wii U and 3DS sales numbers, forced a much more rapid delivery, and gamers might suffer lower quality as a result. What do you think about the odd rollout of the Nintendo Switch content from games to online services? Let's chat about it in the comments. Thank you very much to the people who back the channel on patreon.com/Tarmack. If you want to support the work that I do, that's an excellent way to do it. That's all I have to say. Tarmack out.